What if the biggest breakthroughs in health weren't found in complex protocols, but in the smallest habits that you repeat every single day? Welcome to the Practice Pulse, where we explore how innovative practitioners are building smarter systems, scaling their impact, and redefining what patient care looks like in a modern world. I'm your host, Nancy Margrit, founder of Optima Pro AI, where we help healthcare and wellness businesses grow through practical systems, automation, and scalable infrastructure while retaining the human touch. Today, I'm joined by Jessica Lederhausen. Jessica is a dentist by training, a public health advocate, a former professional athlete, TEDx founder, and a leader in the movement towards simple, sustainable health habits. Her work challenges the noise in today's health space, and it brings us back to something much more powerful: consistency, personalization, and foundational habits that actually stick. This conversation matters right now because as healthcare becomes more complex and more crowded, the real differentiator is not more information, but it's better implementation. Jessica, I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you. And I love your intro. It's really what I stand for and want to, so that's great. I love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah,
good. That's
thanks.
what I was going for. Okay, so you've had such a unique journey from a professional golfer to dentistry to public health to building platforms like TEDxChicago. Can you walk us through that evolution and what ultimately led you to focus on preventative health and habits?
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for having me. I just turned 60, which is interesting. And years ago, I listened to Jane Fonda's third act when she talks about, I guess, from 60 to 80, 90, whatever she thought was third act, how and what you do then could be different, like a different lens or different energy and how you look at that. So I thought, I just want to say that. So
Well, happy birthday.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. So I grew up in Sweden, which is, I would say, on average or typically more prone to be aware of balance in your life. People take public transportation much more. Walking to work a few extra minutes, which saves you time maybe to find parking and all that anyway, depending. I mean, so all those, lot of things, playing outside as kids more, it added up. So I think my lens is a lot about that and balance and lagom, which is a Swedish word meaning not too much or too little, but what you need. So, and then I became a dentist. I think, I don't know why, but I mean, obviously my both parents worked in healthcare and that's what I knew. And I had an uncle who was a doctor as well. And he gave me books about the body. And I must have been like 8, 9 years old. I loved it. It was so interesting. So, and then I'm walking you through and it all adds up. And as a kid, you mentioned my golf. In middle school already, I played high school level golf, I would call it. I mean college golf level and traveled around Europe. And I think that's when the spark for habits came to me because I needed to figure out ways to make everything work, to get my practicing, school, friends, and whatever it was.
Mhm.
So it's all adding up and time goes on. And fast forward, I moved to the States with my husband and 4 kids in my mid 30s. So I worked as a dentist before that, and coming here, I knew I couldn't just pick up. So that's where I went I brought actually research in mobile dental care. So this is where my journey, more of a public health advocate, comes in. And that led me to go back to school and do a master's in public health, in
Awesome.
epidemiology. And that was fun. I mean, it's so much fun. I could study that all day long. And I also want to implement what's needed to be done. So my contribution after small business ownership and tried a startup, and then I started TEDx. My book came about, so I had to leave TEDx. It was too much work. And so that all of these things together, seeing also that I little frustrated how America as a whole pay the most money for healthcare, and we are very low on the list of how healthy we are. And I think that's frustrating. So I really tried to figure out how I can, when the kids were out of the house and I could be more choosing what to do again, I felt it was time to try to circle back to my what I came from and my education I had around it and my actually passion about it. So my entry point for my coaching, which I took a coaching certificate to start somewhere, became the mouth. When I actually, on one of my walks on the river of Chicago, back and forth on the river, I realized finally there was a dentist, actually, there were two dentists in 1 week, I think, on podcast, which used to be zero in my
Hmm.
world of what I was listening to. And I felt, oh my gosh, this is it. I can talk about wellness through the mouth. I don't know
Hmm.
why I hadn't figured that out otherwise, but that was super helpful.
Yeah,
And that took me where I am. Yeah.
that's
I mean,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, what stands out to me about your story is that you didn't pivot away from your background, you expanded on it. And I think that's something a lot of founders struggle with when they're evolving their work, but you took and just compounded and it almost like snowballed to where you are today. And it's so wonderful when you have so many layers of knowledge behind where someone ends up because you can really benefit from their expertise at that point because they can see it from so many different perspectives and at such a deep level. So, when you started your deeper dive into public health and especially in the microbiome space, which we talked about on our intro call, what gap did you see in how people were approaching their health?
Well, before I talk about that, I'd like to say thank you for saying that you see that I added on instead of. And that was a long journey because in Sweden, all women work and it's not a question even. And so when I came here, it was a little harder to find my way, which is not bad. I mean, hard can be good. And I learned so many new things. But I did go to a TED Med event before I went to TED events. I mean, regular TED or other TED events. And first time, this is not 20 years ago, but almost, that I felt, oh my gosh, hello, my name is, and the other person said, well, I used to be a scientist, whatever. Now I'm teaching high school chemistry. I mean, I met so many people who did what you're saying, and I felt it's okay. I'm allowed to do whatever, to bring what I have and make something out of it. So just saying that, if anybody listens and feels the same way, it could be helpful. It's okay. Add on. It's not instead of.
I love that.
Yeah. But so you asked the gap I see. I think, well, the obvious one is we are compartmentalizing the body. And for me, the focus is on the mouth. So the mouth being separated from the body, which is fascinating. I went to, while working with TEDx, the group, we always went out looking for speakers, and gut microbiome became more visible, and we talked about it. This is 10 years ago almost. So I went to a very interesting presentation and fantastic speaker, and he showed a slide with a torso and talked about the gut, blah, 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 got this, got that microbiome. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't raise my hand, but I almost did. You forgot something. It goes through the mouth. It
Hmm.
doesn't just, So that sparked me to one of the maybe 3, 4 things that made me write the book. So that's, but anyway, the separation between mouth and body is a thing I mean, it didn't used to be that way back in history, but now sort of, but I think we think everything needs to be so specialized, which is a good thing, that we have people who are really good at whatever it is in the heart or in a tooth or in whatever.
Mhm.
It's great. I'm grateful, and we should all be grateful for that. But maybe more of the healthcare could be looking at the whole person and see connections. So that's the real gap.
No, I think that's a
Maybe
great.
also, actually, if I may say,
Sure,
in
go ahead.
dentistry, especially, I have had my own encounters when I went to see a specialist for my receding gum. And I didn't think, but now I will never do it again. But he put me in the chair, looked at me and said, okay, I can have you in for surgery next week. And I flew out of there. I mean, I was rude, basically. I just ran out of there. And then when I landed, walking in the streets of Chicago, thinking, what happened in there? I didn't come for surgery. I came for, could you tell? Because it was okay. So I think he thought, she doesn't like how it looks, so I'm going to fix it. I'm grateful that he could do that, but I don't want that. I wanted to know why and what can I
Mhm.
do differently going forward so it doesn't get worse. So that's a gap, I think. That's a total collapse in communication.
I agree.
And that's a
Yeah.
problem. I don't know, luckily, I haven't had many other encounters, but maybe other parts of the body, we have the same idea, but it's not maybe the same. But it's a lot about how it looks, which is good. But we should
Yeah.
focus on function and health first, I
Yeah,
think.
and I think you identified several different gaps really in what you just said because we do have, there's a gap not only okay, how does it look, but also how does it function, but also really diving into with your patient or your client. What are your outcomes? What do you want? Like, what are your goals before leading them down one path or another instead of just assuming she wants this to look better, I want to fix it in this way, but like really diving into what your patient wants. So I think that's this really strong gap that you identified. And also to your point, there's so much information out there with the different parts of the body and different nutritional information, but there's not a lot of clarity. And that creates a lot of confusion for patients and practitioners when we're not able to really look at the whole person and address the person as a whole. So I think that was great. You really identified some
Yeah.
big gaps.
I can tell when I was a new dentist way back, I had a patient who came, a beautiful young woman, sort of my age, I guess, and she was missing one front tooth. I mean, she said hello and she smiled. I saw that. And luckily, I didn't do what this person did to me. But I don't know why I thought about it, but she didn't say anything. So I looked at her like a regular exam, and then that's not why she came. And I was very surprised, but it's not my judgment of her, what she wants. So I just went along with it. But I've been thinking about that actually over the years because it's harder to get a job in Sweden if you don't have two teeth in the front.
Hmm.
But still, very good lesson learned early. I think that I had that opportunity to learn that. I guess.
Yes, and very insightful of you at that time, really. Yeah. Well, awesome. So tell us a little bit about like what problem are you really solving for people today when it comes to how they manage their health and habits through your work?
The problem I'm solving or I'm trying to solve is that I think we have more. I don't want to sound foo-foo or sort of not serious, but there's more healing inside the body than we give the body credit for. So in the mouth, for example, you have saliva that cleans out the system and gives teeth the minerals, it supplies the minerals, but it needs the support of a balanced oral microbiome. So we used to kill all the bacteria because they were all bad. And that we have realized, which is great. But now we have to help our body to get what it needs. That's one system
Hmm.
inside. So there are more on my list, but I just as an example. So when I tell people that, I think it's almost freeing. I mean, it feels good to support yourself, I think. And it's not a big deal if you do that a little bit here and there and it adds up. Maybe it's not going to miracles, but it's going to add and you're going to boost your health. I think we could
Hmm.
use that word.
Hmm.
And even back in Sweden, because it's so long ago now, I learned. I mean, there are things you do reverse or at least stop the cavity that is starting to become a cavity. You can stop the process by giving the teeth what it needs, the tooth. And that's interesting. I think that's a little different than most dentists think about, I think, but I can be wrong. Hopefully they think about that.
No,
So
I think that's very
overall,
true.
I'm more into heal and prevent rather than drill and fill when it comes to dentistry, but it can be converted to other language for other medicine.
That's a great way to put it. I like that a lot rather than
Thanks.
drill and fill. Yeah, I experienced something when my middle child was younger. He had a cavity in a baby tooth, and we decided we didn't want to have it, drilled out because it was just starting. And it was like, how much time do we have? And I sought out some kind of topical something that was supposed to restructure and help kill off the bacteria and that air, the bad bacteria or whatever. And we used that instead, and it actually slowed the growth. And he didn't have to have anything done. It just naturally, fell out and was fine when it even looked fine when it fell out. So it's interesting because I do feel like most in us, the initial inclination is, oh, you have a cavity starting. We got to get in there and drill. Whereas we do have some alternative treatments that can really help at early
Yeah.
stages.
And I was trained, or I used to say, let's start with minimum non-invasive and come back in a month or 2 or 3, whatever we would assume needed, and follow up instead of
Mhm.
jumping on it right away, because less is more.
Mhm.
As soon as you cut into a tooth, there might be things happening later on in life because of that, because it's not as perfect as it is when it's its own natural way. But you don't want it to be either to go too far, so people do have cavities that become root fillings. I mean, it's so
Right.
there is a reasoning, I'm sure
Mhm.
the dentists have, but if we get better at helping get better tools and better creams or whatever we do to help, that's what we are seeing more of, I think. So we're
Yeah,
getting there.
and like you're talking about health through the lens of small, consistent habit changes instead of extreme protocols, which I love because that's kind of a thread in what you do. Considering that, why don't you break down for us your core framework and how you kind of guide people through these micro habits?
Well, the first part is, so when I'm thinking, I teach about the oral microbiome and how it works and why, but not, you don't have to go super deep, but at least so people understand, okay, we have that. And then I go through my 4 pillars, which is not everything, but it's a good foundation for wellness. So I talk about breathing, sleeping, eating, not a diet, eating, and moving, not super exercise, moving. And then I talk about each one and explain how it's connected to back to the oral microbiome. Because if the oral microbiome is out of balance, have you heard of a leaky gut?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you can have leaky mouth. It's the same idea.
Hmm.
Bacteria can sneak out through the bloodstream and then go elsewhere, which we used to know for cardiovascular disease, but now we know it for many other, I mean, the long list where they show up. So then it means that you can support your oral health by supporting your sleep, for example. If you sleep with an open mouth, you usually typically wake up with a dry mouth because the oral microbiome has been out of balance. So I can explain all of these 4 and inspire, I think, people to make small changes. And I didn't know, and how can I sleep with a closed mouth? And I go, there's mouth tape you can try
Mhm.
to practice. I mean, all of the 4 pillars make sense, and that's where I wanted to land. And then hopefully, then people say, so how do I do this? And I say, I can help you. I train in tiny habits. I use that as a tool for change,
Mhm.
which means small changes, and then you build on that, and that goes a long way.
Yep. So tell us a little bit. I love the 4 pillars. I think how you've identified these different actions that we take every day in our lives and how they really all work together to affect our mouth microbiome and our bodies as a whole is really great. Like I think it's amazing. But how do you help people actually implement these tiny habits in a way that creates a lasting change instead of a short-term motivation?
First of all, I think I'm a believer in when it comes to these serious things you might benefit from to change. Some, I believe in the idea of, let's say, running, that you become a runner rather than, oh, I'm going to run a marathon and run intensely for a few months to practice for that. And then you just don't do it again. So that's my baseline foundation. The things we talk about when I speak to people, it's something you really want to do or become. So
Yeah.
that helps because you really think it through. Don't just say it's fun to do this or it's cool to do that. It's something you really want to do. And then you start really, really small. So even on a rainy day, you'll do your 3 push ups or whatever you choose to do to get stronger, which is
Mhm.
very helpful, by the way.
I
And you
only
can
have
do
to do 3? Okay, I'm in.
morning and evening, 3 push ups. You're going to get stronger. You're going to add quickly the 4th
Yeah.
and 5th, but that's your problem. You can add
Yeah.
as many as you want.
It's
So
so
that's
true
sort of
though.
how I do it. Yeah, I think it's and their tiny habit has a system to it that I follow,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah, so no, I think that's an important place to start is really looking at what do you identify as a person and like and when you've created that identity, it's a lot easier to implement those habits because that is a part of you. It's a part you can reflect on, and you can look back when it's comes down to, your willpower, like, or am I going to do this or not? Well, if I'm a runner, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go run. And I love the idea of starting small because that's all it takes, right? Is to just show up at the gym consistently. You don't have to stay for 20 minutes, just show up. And so the more you show up, then the more you're going to do, like just starting with 3 push-ups, then it's going to be 4, like you said, 4 or
I'm
5.
even more practical. I would say do the push-ups in your bedroom because
Right.
you're always going or hopefully waking up in the bed and then you reminded. So that's the anchor that
Mhm.
comes with the tiny habits method. So if you do, I mean, you don't get sweaty if you do 3, 4, 5 push-ups, but if you do something that is anchored, you don't even have to leave your house. I mean,
Mhm.
I would love for you to go outside and walk and run, but so that's where I try. I try not to make it complicated even
Mhm.
when
No, I think
I
that's
suggest what to
great.
do.
Yeah, execution is where most people fall off. It's not necessarily a knowledge problem, it's a consistency problem. And you really kind of take that out of the equation when you create these anchors and you make it accessible. Yeah, like you tie it to a trigger that is something consistent, like waking up or going to sleep. So tell me a little bit about what you think most people understand about health optimization today, especially with everything that we're kind of seeing online.
Well, I think it's become a fad, which is a good start, maybe for a real change in our health, to be serious. But I'm not a fad type of person, really. I think it's a little loud out there. And I appreciate it because some people are the first response, the first line ahead of everybody else, trying new things. And that's great. Thank you very much. But it sounds always like you have to take this protein powder. Otherwise, you're not never gonna be able to. I mean, it's a little loud for my taste,
Mhm.
but I try to listen and learn and not get sort of triggered by the loudness, but just hear what everybody says and make my own version of it. So
Mhm.
I do take protein powder in my oatmeal, but it, I don't believe that's going to make the whole change and everything's going to be better. It's still a multi-layer, bigger thing than just
Mhm.
one pill or one powder.
Mhm.
So it's more I don't want to say it's more complicated, but it's more complex than that. So it sounds so then I liked the idea of trying to work from inside out because if you start feeling better because your sleep is better, wow, you might change 2, 3, 4 other things because you just feel better. And then so it can roll. But if you take one pill more, it might make you feel better too. But it's not you haven't done much. I think you
Mhm.
like the self advocacy or you feel empowered because I did actually do this. And I pat yourself, like my coach said, on the back when you do something small but good.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point because our bodies, we live in an ecosystem and our bodies are an ecosystem. When you take a pill, you're taking care of a feedback back of your body that your feedback is negative and you take a pill that's going to squash that feedback, right? But if you actually go in and you figure out what's this feedback coming from and you shift something in the ecosystem that makes that feedback go away in a natural way, then you're really able to create some homeostasis. And that's when, like you said, other areas shift and change, and you see really positive growth in the ecosystem and it compounds from there. So I love your tiny habits system and really how you're tapping into creating that ecosystem and bringing it back to a homeostasis that's really beneficial to the individual. I think it's very, very important. So let's talk a little bit about the business side of things. You've built multiple businesses and initiatives over the year. You're passionate about health and wellness. You've been a pro athlete. You've been on TEDx. You've been all over. So, from an operational standpoint, how do you structure your work today so that you're staying focused on what actually moves the needle for your business?
So I just came off a mastermind group that is super supportive. And at the moment, I'm too scattered and it's not perfect at all. But I think over the years, I think in a way, I've always been in the right place, but maybe early. You know, you say you should be in the right place at the right time. That's interesting. So this time around, that's why I said I third act. I'm taking it slow. I want to see what happens. I can already feel we're talking much more about the mouth body connection, and also that doctors and dentists should work together more, communicate for the best interest of the patient and them. There's so many, I mean, personally, I've just heard stories from friends that their parents didn't know what was wrong. And they thought the worst case scenario, and there was MRIs and there were a lot of testing and trying to get a diagnosis. And then 3-4 months later, they found something in the mouth that made the whole situation. So I just see it's getting better. So I'm happy. So I want to be part of that. And I'm not going to run as I usually do. And
Awesome.
we'll see. It's a long, long round this time.
Yeah. And it's great. You said it's not perfect right now, but I feel like a lot of growth happens in the imperfections because it's when you're going through that's when you're really growing and moving through something when you feel slightly uncomfortable and you're figuring out how to get it to that, more perfect because we never can be perfect, but to that more perfect, closer to perfect,
Thank you
right?
for saying that. Makes me feel good or better. Yes. So my focus is the bigger picture is sort of clear but unclear, but I really want to be part of the solution,
Mhm.
like a mini part of better health outcomes in America, basically. And that's a
Mhm.
big ask. So that's not going to happen by me. But if I can contribute, that's fantastic.
And it sounds like you are by placing yourself in a room with others to mastermind on how can we really influence change in this area and really help people with their overall health. And I do think it's super important for us to have a connection between the doctor and the dentist, so because you can compartmentalize for specialists, but you have to have a whole picture. Like there has to be communication between the specialists so that we have a whole picture of the patient.
Yeah. And I think that and more of a self, not control, but we can do more ourselves. And that would be easier for more of us to stay healthy because the cost would go down. But that's an issue maybe at the bigger level. But I think we shouldn't say no because of that. We need to let everybody have a chance to live their healthiest life.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
And
that's
what
not
you're
another pill, I think. I mean, some pills we need because the soil is
Yes.
not the same as it used to be and whatever. A lot
Right.
of things we can probably do ourselves.
Yeah. And you're bringing that education out there to people, which is what people need because understanding is the first step and then implementation, which you're also teaching through your tiny habits, is how we really move the needle. So, for other founders or practitioners that are listening, what's one system or habit within your business that you feel has made the biggest difference in your ability to grow and stay consistent?
Trying to be more focused. I think that's a given. I mean, so that's the best. At first, I guess I told myself this year I'm going to do a few things and see how that goes. And I did the same last year. So I'm honing in slowly. I'm throwing it out a little bit wider net, and then I'm closing it again.
Awesome. Yeah, getting that laser focus really is a good habit to have as a leader as you're expanding things in your business. So, as you think about expanding your impact, whether it's through education, speaking, or new programs, what does growth look like for you over the next few years?
If I knew that, I would tell you, but maybe you can figure that out for me. No, I'm really hoping to speak to with dentists much more. I haven't done that enough at all, and really ask partly questions. I mean, what do you say to patients when they ask, "What about the oral microbiome?" What do you say, and how do you act around that? And what is your team doing, and what do you talk to your team about so you're aligned? Biggest, I mean, that's my goal, I think, to really
Mhm.
meet up, but I haven't reached out enough. So it's until I do that, I can say if it's working. But I think why not? I mean, it would be very interesting to hear what they say, and I hope they want to get tools from me or hear from me or me speaking to the whole team so they have the same information
Mhm.
and can work from there.
Yeah, because that's where you're going to
It's
have the
like a
most.
shortcut to see me because I read a million books and papers, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
behind what I'm saying. So I try
Hmm.
to make it simple too. I don't need to use all the fancy words, and I don't need to know everything about every bacteria. I think it's more what do we do with this? And then you have to know when you're the dentist and have patients, you need to know which bacteria are doing what. But that's for the saliva testing companies. They do that very well, and you get
Hmm.
help with that.
Yeah, they really do. Okay, so looking ahead, where do you see the future of healthcare and wellness going, especially when it comes to personalization, preventative care, and patient engagement?
So, first of all, I want to say there is only one way, and that is forward, and we need to get healthier. Actually, I looked it up the other day. I think we are at the highest, number one on spending. I might be wrong, but I think that's what it said.
Sounds right.
And we were 47th on the health outcomes. But it's very general. And I think I asked, uh, I don't know what I asked. I think I asked for, what's it called? Age, how old you expect to be. What's it called?
Hmm.
Yeah.
The life
And
expectancy.
yes, thank you. And I think that's a big gap between 1 and 47. But I mean, if you look it up, it might say something different. But I don't think we're going to get very far from number one on spending. And we're not going to bump up much.
Hmm.
Most countries are like 10% on GDP, and we are almost 20. Yeah. But
Yeah.
so if we could come down a little bit, it would be a lot of money we could spend on other things like education.
And to your point, if we're more proactive on the preventative side and making these tiny habit changes to really implement a healthy lifestyle at an early stage, that's going to decrease the spending and lengthen, the life expectancy. So taking these steps now is really what we need in order, as part of not necessarily the whole solution, but as a big part of
Yeah,
the
yeah. There's always
solution.
multiple levels,
Yeah.
but I think start from the beginning: birth, childbirth, and then mothering, and then preschool, school,
Hmm.
the food, what we teach, activities at school beyond I
Hmm.
mean, the base curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd always need to do better. It's not catastrophe, but everything can be better.
Yes. We always have to look for progress. So,
Yes.
and like you said, it's those tiny habits that are going to get us there. So awesome. All right. So before we close out, I'd like to do just a quick lightning round. So these are short answers and there's only four of them. So are you
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
All right. So what's one myth about health optimization that you would like to eliminate forever?
More is always better.
That's a good one. I like that. Okay. What habit keeps you steady when the stakes are high?
One is hard, but I need to get my sleep pattern back if it's off. But I would
Mm,
add, I need hugs from my husband, and I need to move my body probably.
those are all three great, though. People, I think, underestimate the power of sleep and also the power of human touch. Like the hugs is, need, I think it's five hugs a day just to maintain and more than that to
Yeah.
flourish. So I think those are great. Those three are
I
great.
remember there was a science project that I saw when I was young. A monkey or some animal, I think it was that if they didn't touch the baby literally faded away. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's how I remember it.
Yeah, no, that they've done a lot of studies with that. I'm reading a book right now or I just finished one that was talking about the studies with mom monkeys and like replacing them with a doll that looked like the mom monkey and the difference, even from having like the doll that was like cold and made of metal compared to one that had soft and squishy, but still, the difference between the mom that was actually like coddling and holding the baby. And so the difference in all three. So there's something to that. We have these baby mother relationships for a reason. And us like similar to
I
monkeys
just
were.
have this. You're so funny. Is that the book we have to have a book club? That sounds like the best book. You and I should have our own book club.
Yes,
Oh my
I'm in.
God.
I love books. So
That's
I
so
yes.
funny. I
I
love that.
read at night, but during the day, like when I go for a run, I listen to an audiobook. So this was one I
Yeah.
was actually listening to. That my nighttime one is typically a more of a fun book, but the one I'm reading right now at night is not fun. It's kind of not fun, but
You have to mix it up. That's
you do
totally
have to
fine.
you have to mix it up. But yeah, but to your point, like that, those studies are like they're so important because it really gives you insight to like, because you know that these things make you feel good. You know that like hugs from your husband make you feel good, but you just don't realize that it's not just you're feeling good, it's really affecting your health and your wellness and your mental health. So I think that's a great habit. Also, this is the longest lightning round we've ever had. Sorry, it's my fault. I keep getting
Oh,
off
I'm
the
sorry. And
tangent.
that's fine.
Okay, 2 questions left.
Okay.
What gives you hope right now?
And the hope is I see change. I see organizations changing. I see it happening slowly. Yes.
Awesome. And then this last one, where can listeners follow your work and learn more about what you're building?
And obviously, on my website, the Lagom Method, I have now YouTube channel with podcasts that I've been on that I put up there.
Awesome.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter once a month, and sometimes I skip, but once a month ish. And yeah, and I do courses and webinars and coaching one on one.
That's great. So we'll include links to that in the show notes. And then I'll send you an email to get a list of the books that you have so we can provide those with links where people can purchase as well. Uh,
Yeah, that's on Amazon, or actually, most bookstores nowadays have an online. So I'm on their online presence for sure.
okay, great.
Typically, it's for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So those were all of our questions. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I love your perspective on simplifying health and bringing it back to what actually works in real life. I think the tiny methods habits and the way that or the I'm sorry, the tiny habits method that you're tapping into and the way that you're really coaching people through inserting those new healthy changes into their lives is a game changer for people because it can be overwhelming, like you've said, with the noise out there for health and longevity. So having a system like yours that really simplifies things and makes it attainable for the average person is just, it's exciting. I'm very excited for the work that you're doing. So thank you for being on the show.
And thank you for having me. Thanks.
Yeah,
It was
of
fun.
course. Good. And for everyone listening, if this conversation resonated with you, be sure to connect with Jessica and explore her work more. She has just wonderful material out there that is worth really tapping into. And if you're a practitioner looking to build smarter systems in your business, whether that's patient communication, automation, or growth infrastructure, that's exactly what we focus on at Optima Pro AI. So thank you for tuning into the Practice Pulse. Innovation creates possibility, implementation turns it into growth. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who you think might find value. We'll see you next time.